Introducing your moderator, Nathan McCartney.
How's everyone feeling? You having a good time? Learning anything? Good. We got a great panel today. A lot of people that I respect and I learn from every time they talk. So excited to bring out David Melhado, head of marketing at United Masters. Co-founder of Do It Everyday Music or Nothing, Boogus. An esteemed attorney, Yolanda Carter. So, for you folks who don't know who's on the stage, I think it's important just to kind of highlight some of their accolades. Because really appreciative of them coming down to Charlotte. Boogus, not only is he the co-founder of a record label with his longtime friend Russ, he's a very established music artist, generating tens of millions of streams, touring in Europe. So thank you, Boogus, for coming.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yolanda Carter has been recognized by The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, and a plethora of other publications as one of the top music attorneys working on deals for Metro Boomin, Lil Yachty, Kelly Rowland, DJ Drama, and many more clients. So give it up for Yolanda.
Thank you, my pleasure.
And David Melhado, been recognized by Business Insider as a change agent, Billboard for top indie power players and top players in R&B and hip hop, and really crushing the game at UM. So give it up for Dave.
Thank you. How's everybody doing?
So I think this panel is about sonic shifts and just kind of looking at where the music business is going and how technology has changed things. So the beauty of talking to these folks are they're in the service of creators and how they can help creatives continue to stay relevant and innovate. So for you guys, what are you seeing that's kind of really changed the music business over the past couple years?
I'll take it. So for me, what I've noticed is there's been a shift in distribution. There's been a change in how you get your music out there, and the best ways, if you're an artist, the best ways to become discovered. So it used to be about, like, let's say you put out a song, you shoot a $50,000, $100,000 music video. That stuff still kind of, it still happens, but now it's more so about content. You could just take a digital camera and, stand anywhere and chop it up into little 10, 15-second clips of content, and you could reach the same people for far cheaper. So I've noticed that how you reach people has changed, and I think one of the most important things, even switching to AI, is making sure you own your stuff, because you want to, if people are replicating your voice and doing all that stuff, if you own it, you can decide if you want that to happen or not. But if you don't even own your stuff and that stuff's happening, you don't have any real, you don't have any legs to stand on. So I think ownership is really important. I think people are owning their music more now than ever.
Yeah, and on that note, tell everyone a little bit about your record label, because you do things a little bit uniquely in that the artists you work with, you allow them to own their masters.
Absolutely.
And they're publishing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how does that work? Talk to us a little bit about that.
So, as an artist, I just feel like God sent you this music, these ideas, this talent, this skill set came from a higher source, and I believe that you should own it. I don't think somebody else should own your ideas and your intellectual properties. I don't think somebody else should own that stuff. I think you should own that stuff. So I've always felt that any artist I wanted to work with, I want them to own their stuff. Because you hear a lot of times about, oh, my label screwed me over, this, that. So many of our favorite artists are not financially where they should be, and it stems from not owning your stuff. And a lot of times that just happens because, we're coming from we're coming from behind the 8 ball, let's just say. We're coming from situations that we need the money, so we're willing to give it all away for a couple $100,000, but you realize that like owning it is more important, and being able to stay at home, receive residual income every month. You know, somebody could give you $500K up front. That sounds incredible, but first of all, half of it's gonna get taxed. So you have $250,000 really, and by the time you give your life a makeover, a lot of that will be gone, and then you now have to keep maintaining the new makeover, the new car payment, the new house. So it's very important that you own your stuff, because when you own your stuff, and that's why I want all my artists to own their stuff, you get that mailbox money Nipsey Hussle talked about. You know, you get, every month you can look into your mailbox and there's $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. Whether or not you put out a new song, whether or not you did a show this month, you don't have to leave the crib at all, and 5-6 figures check will come to you if you own that stuff. So that's what's important for me. I want all my artists to experience that.
That's powerful. I hope people are taking notes. Dave, same thing with you. You're over at United Masters, where you guys are all about empowering artists, letting them own their masters as well. And you guys are also always innovative with new brand partnerships and new ways to help break acts. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, like similar to what Bugus was saying, I think the biggest shift in the music industry over the last few years has been artists have gone from employees essentially for a label to owners and entrepreneurs, right? They're looking at the business completely different as opposed to 10 years, 20 years ago when they had to give up the rights to their music, the ownership of their art, right, as a prerequisite to be able to get exposure, right? Artists now have the ability to be able to take that talent, that music, those creations that they've worked so hard on, and use that as a foundation to build legacy for their family, right? So here at United Masters, we've been champions of that for the last 7 years. So what used to be frowned upon, when everybody used to say we was crazy for even thinking that artists should own their masters, and we was just taking a percentage of licensing, right? And we were saying that artists needed to own their masters because, you know, we was hitting a bunch of headwinds, right? But now the industry has started to change. Labels are doing different types of deals, right? So us championing that independence and the ownership has proven to be right, as now artists are now able to kind of see what's in their pipeline and then leverage that, right? When it comes to content, they can create more content, release more music, and they can have a steady flow of income, right? Because when you think about when a label gives you an offer for a deal, if they're offering you $1 million, that means you must be worth more than $1 million, right, for a deal. So now with independence, it allows you to be able to release music as frequent as you want. It allows you to experiment, and it allows you to be able to build community that's going to be able to buy into you, right? You can take those small group of fans that you start with and grow them over time, and they're always going to buy into you as an artist because they love what you're putting out.
Wow. Yuwanda, one of the technology shifts that we've seen over the past couple decades is just kind of the business model changing from an ownership model, people go and buy CDs, to then an access model and moving into digital. Can you talk about a little bit, you've done a couple acquisition deals where your clients' catalogs have been purchased, how just kind of like streaming has benefited artists in that sense because their catalogs continue to stream long after they put out music?
I'm gonna be so positive in this conversation. So I 100% agree that the model has shifted. The distribution model is shifting, and I do love the fact that so many artists are now able to own their masters and to be the captain of their ship, which was unheard of before. I do think that it's possible, especially if you own your masters, to see that mailbox money and residuals, because to Nathan's question, when you're talking about streaming, streaming only makes a difference if you own the master. And I think this is where people misunderstand this, and I really hate for my clients who are artists and or producers, and every year Spotify does this thing so it was like X person had a gazillion streams or they had 1 million streams, and everybody's like, oh shit, can we curse? I need to know, I'm sorry. Okay, they was like, oh, I'm sorry, Benny. This is great, but people don't realize that for an artist, for the creator that does not own their master one stream pays less than 1/3 of 1 cent. One stream, if you are not the master owner, pays less than 1/3 of 1 penny. So streaming suggests that somebody had a gazillion streams and they've made a pocket full of money. But if you don't own that master, then you're not the person putting out that actual thing and you're not listed, you're not making. So everybody remembers the song, because I know we probably have more young people here than we have those that are my age, when Happy was out, the Pharrell Rooms. I don't care where you were in the world, that song was being played a gazillion times. Pharrell did an article, in an interview, I don't know if it was paper or not, and he was like, he got his first check from streaming, it was like $2,300. And again, Pharrell is rich, he's made money, and my point is that as popular as that song was, it crossed over crossing over. Streaming does not pay a lot of money if you don't own your masters. And so that is a big shift. But whereas we're talking about, and it does make it easier for people who are not going the traditional record label, say, to be able to get out and get more eyeballs and do other things. But the money, in theory, unless you own it, and quite frankly, different than what Boogus has said, because I know that what Boogus does, not only for himself, but for Russ and his other artists, it's all resources. If you don't have the resources, and I'm not just talking about money, but people who know what they're doing, and that's also the work ethic. You can't just I'm gonna upload this song and that's all I'm going to do. That's not going to get you those 5-figure checks in the mail. And I think that's what a lot of artists are missing out on, because the model has shifted. Record labels took a lot, and they took a whole lot more than they should have before the United Masters in the World came in, and they switched the game up. You can own it. We're gonna help you with these resources you may not have for a nominal percentage. And that's a fair model than giving up a greater percentage. But we also had albums, and then we shifted to cassettes, and then we shifted to compact disc and all those things. And those things required more effort than just uploading it online. And it still doesn't justify the big stake that the record labels were taking, but there were people who were doing those things. Now that the model has made it easier, and in some cases, for some artists who are not doing the work that a Boogus is doing and some of the other artists, it made it lazier, because what we think now is, I can just upload it, I can do SoundCloud, and I'm gonna take off. And I think AI, to some degree, is, I'm not a proponent. Call me what you want. It's going to extend the laziness for people who are already lazy, not those who are looking to take advantage of the technology and it's going to increase the laziness for some of those, because right now AI is all derivative. There is nothing new that's been put into AI. What makes AI successful is that it has to feed off what is already there to eventually, in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, create a thing that is supposedly original. It can't even get there without feeding off what's already there. So if you are creating a beat, creating a song, you're writing a film, you're doing a legal brief in court, and we've all seen this go terribly awry, it's all based off something that is either already there or something they've made up, hence attorneys who've used these briefs that were made that there were no cases. And those attorneys, in this instance, were lazy because they didn't even check their sources. So you have to still have the same work ethic if you were Michael Jackson or anybody else. You still have to have it. And I don't want people to think because the model has shifted that it makes it easier. You can't tell me that Boogus is not working as hard as if we did not have this distribution model that we currently have now. He absolutely is. And that is why he's able to, if he doesn't want to work for a month, he can still get a check, or even for a year, because of the work that he put into it, going into it. And you have to be willing to do that.
Wow, give it up. Doubling down on that theme of laziness, Boogus, one of the things I really appreciate about your label is the acts that you're looking at aren't necessarily, the driver for them isn't consumption, where a lot of major labels, they only want to pick something up if there's already traction around it. Talk a little bit about how you think about community and superfans, and what you're attracted to when evaluating talent.
So for me, I want somebody who, if I look at them, I can tell they're gonna make it whether or not I get involved or not. Somebody who is like, man, this kid has a work ethic. If you tell me you're an artist and I go onto your Spotify, you haven't put out a song in 8 months, it's kind of a turnoff. because it's like, if you're seriously pursuing this, you shouldn't go 90 days without a new song out. You know, I know life gets in the way and stuff, but there's a quote that says, you know, amateurs let life get in the way. Professionals do what they got to do regardless. So I look for hunger and work ethic, because talent can always be, as you keep working hard, your talent will get better. But if you're somebody who, I look on your page, I can't even tell you do music, it looks like, I don't know, you're a family man or whatever. It's not giving what it needs to be given. It's not giving, this guy is hungry, this girl is hungry, she's going after her thing. So I look for a work ethic, and I want to see somebody who I could tell is going to make it, or at least pursue it relentlessly with or without me. Then I just want to get on board with you. It's like, okay, I could tell you're going somewhere, I want to go with you. But I don't want to be I don't want to be working with an artist who I have to tell to go to the studio and, you know, try to be their cheerleader. It's just kind of a hassle, because me personally, I work harder than that. So I want somebody who's working just as hard, if not harder. So one of the Russ, he's very well known for the song a week thing. I did the same thing. Russ put out a song a week for, I think, 60 weeks. I put out a song a week for 83 weeks. Every single week for 83 weeks, I had a new song coming from January 1st, 2017, all the way till October of 2018. There was a new song coming every single week. And I tell artists all the time, that only stems because I own my own studio. So, and what I mean by that is, that doesn't mean I own some big, fancy Quincy Jones looking studio. No, it's like my bedroom, like a laptop, cheap mic, you know? So I just had the bare minimum, but I put so much time and effort and energy into it. So when I look at other artists and you tell me you've been doing music for 5 years, but you got 16 songs out, nah, I put out 83 songs in 18 months. You know, so like what Yolanda was saying, like the thing with the residual income, that stems from having an extensive catalog. You know, I have over 250 songs out. Russ has over 300 songs out. Before Russ signed with Columbia and got a major deal, he had 250, 60 songs out in a matter of 4 or 5 years. So it was a relentless pursuit. So for me, I'm looking for somebody who I can tell, man, this kid is hungry. Like, whether or not the songs are Michael Jackson level or, no, it's like he's working. If you're working that hard, you're going to see improvement. You're going to get better. So I just look for somebody who's very hungry. That's what I look for personally.
Yeah, that's great. One of the things the internet has done is it's made the world a lot smaller. And, you know, going back to record labels, a lot of them are looking at the same data when evaluating who they want to pursue. Dave, at United Masters, you guys have been on the forefront and just kind of planting your flag into Africa. And it really isn't necessarily about, you know, what's streaming and what's not, but more of understanding the culture. Why was that important for United Masters to really get out there and have boots on the ground?
Yeah, so, I mean, it was important for us because music is global, right? And when we looked at the data of who's using our platform, we saw just as many people outside of the U.S. using the platform as using it in the U.S., right? But that means they was paying USD to be able to pay for the service. So 2 years ago, we went to Nigeria in hopes of understanding the landscape, understanding the needs. And what we saw was that it was a challenge for them to be able to, one, pay for our service, pay for services, right? Be able to pay for studio time. The resources were limited. So we set out to be able to provide some of those things. When it came through education, we created some education programs. We partnered with the SARS Academy. So one of the most prolific producers on the continent named SARS. He's produced for WizKid, Burna Boy, Thames, and a number of other artists. He has an academy that was developing producers. So we invested into that academy 2 years ago, and he started developing artists in addition to the producers. And then this last December, we launched the platform, but we lowered the price for United Masters. We allow artists to pay in their local currency. They can receive their royalties in their local currency. We did a partnership with Coca-Cola and then also Diageo to be able to provide resources for artists on the ground there. So it's really about listening to what the needs of the artists are. We're not going just throwing money at this artist because they're streaming crazy on DSPs. We wanted to be able to nurture talent from the ground up because ultimately that's what's most important for us.
Excellent. Yolanda, you work with a lot of incredible acts that are more than just artists. They're brands in themselves, whether that's Metro or Yachty. Can you talk a little bit about how they think about the verticals they want to get into and how you support them with deals as someone like Yachty moves into podcasting and media? Metro Boomin is, putting out films and doing soundtracks. What's that like, and what's that innovative approach that you guys put towards building brands for artists?
Thank you. One of the highlights of my career where I am now is that I don't have to just work with whatever comes to the door. And again, that's not a negative. When you're starting out, you know, that's how you learn. You do good deals, you do not so good deals, you work with great people, you work with people, and now I work with people, and I can say hands down, who are really, really good people. And part of that is not just being good people, but they're very intentional about their craft. So, the interesting thing is, although there's an age difference, about a 5-year age difference between Yachty and Metro, I started working with both of them when they were still teenagers. Metro was 19, Yachty was 18. Metro was still in college. Yachty, had come home and no parent knew. His mother did not know. But they were very intentional about what their craft looked like, and they very much knew what they did, what they offered, and what their creative things were. So it's easy because they both knew that it wasn't just going to be music. Yachty on the artist side, Metro originally then on the producer side, and what they saw. Metro and his siblings are huge comic book fans. So the Spider-Verse thing, like on his birthday or one of their birthdays, if there is a new comic book movie out, whether it's Marvel, whatever, they're going to the movie. So that was not just like, oh, we got this opportunity. This was very intentional. And these are other things. So it makes it easy to work with them, because when I get these calls from whether it's the label or the brands, hey, we want to pitch a thing, or this is what we're thinking about, or it's with me in management, I can tell them off the rip, like, yeah, this is something we're not going to do. So we got an opportunity for Yachty to potentially be in a movie, and this was early on, and have a song. And when they described the scene, it was college boys on a beach on top of a mountain. One of them accidentally cuts their penis off. It rolls down a hill. And I was like, yeah, no, I got deals with him at McDonald's. There will be no penis rolling down any hill here, So I am very intentional about what that looks like. There are certain things that we just won't even entertain with Yachty, because he has an image that, allows us to do the McDonald's and some of the other things that he's been able to do. And even with Metro, there are just some things that he won't do. And I know that, and all these things make sense. It is not like because I think I'm too good, but it doesn't align with the brand. And every now and then, they're, not with them particularly, but I've had artists who've made a misstep. But that's growth and that's maturity, and they learn from it. It makes it easy, but I think that's also a part of the work ethic. Knowing, and what I ask my clients when I'm onboarding new clients is, not just what you want to do. I want a record deal, I want a publishing deal. Is where do you see yourself? Not in the short term, but in the long term, because that's going to determine what we're going to do, potentially who you may do a feature with, or, who you're going to have running your social media. I can't have, or you can't have, too many things that are gonna be questionable. I remember I had a client that had done a long-term endorsement with a clothing brand, and it wasn't a bad clothing brand, but as we were moving out of it after probably a year or two, he wanted to do something that was more high fashion. And we had a very eye-opening conversation. So this was before 2020. And they were like, we would love to. It's great. His brand, he definitely can get into that clientele. But because he did this mid-tier, branding deal, we can't now do something with a higher fashion brand because it just didn't skew. We can't go from McDonald's to Nobu. And again, no disparagement to McDonald's or Nobu, but it was just not the same. And so what it taught me was that I needed to be forward thinking from the very beginning of my client's career about them potentially doing a deal with a brand that may be great, but if we're looking high fashion, for instance, later on, we may have to say no to this $500,000 now if we're trying to get 2 million in 5 years. And that's a lot to say no to, especially if you're just starting out, but that's what you make better decisions, and you got to live your lifestyle accordingly.
And on that note of being like forward thinking, one of the things with technology is you can just reach so many people with the click of a button, right? So Bugus, you were talking about how you were putting out a new song every week for 80 some weeks. For some artists, that's given them the opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I don't necessarily need to go out and see my fans. Like an NBA YoungBoy, he's a top 5 streaming artist, lives in Utah, doesn't really do interviews, doesn't really do touring. So for him, that's the way it works. But for you, Bugus, not only are you streaming, you're still hitting the road. Why is that important for you?
Well, I think it's important because in the past, you've seen some artists blow up, they get on stage, and you can tell they don't have any stage experience. So I do think it's important to do as many shows as you can do just to get your feet wet, get comfortable on stage, get experience. So if you do catch a hit record and the whole world is now tuned in, watching you, you don't look like an amateur. So I do think that getting those 10,000 hours in every aspect of your craft is important. You need to put 10,000 hours in the studio, but you need to put 10,000 hours on the stage. So like we talked about Burna Boy, I'm Nigerian myself. So what separates Burna Boy from a lot of the Afrobeat acts is the fact that he is an excellent performer. That was one of, just like Travis Scott, there's certain people who majority of their brand is the live show. You know what I mean? So Burna Boy, he was running through Nigeria, like 36 states in Nigeria. He did a show in every state before the world heard about him. He performed all over the whole country. So it's just important to get your feet wet, get that stage time, get that experience. So if you do catch a hit and the world is watching you all of a sudden, you look like a seasoned performer, because we can all tell when someone does not know what they're doing up there, and it's not exciting for anybody. And I do think being a great performer is the difference in between. Longevity can happen because you're a great performer. Like Beyonce, everybody knows she's a great performer. Certain artists, you might necessarily like the album, you might not love the album, but if I go to their show, I'm gonna get an experience. So I think it's important to get out there, get your feet wet, and then there's fans you're gonna make just because you're in front of them on stage, So I think that's very important to get out there.
Yeah, and on that same note, Dave, you guys kind of have the same thing going on with Toby and with Big X. And right now, Big X, the plug, is having a moment. I think it's gonna be bigger than a moment. I think he's gonna be a career artist here. But talk to us a little bit about how you encourage acts to get out on the road, even when they're not making money. They might be operating at a loss, but it's important for them to build that community from the start.
Yeah, no, for sure. So Big X The Plug, we partnered with Big X The Plug 2.5 years ago, and he had 500 monthly listeners on Spotify. Over the course of a year and a half, we started to build his audience, his community. We released music consistently. And then it was like kind of topping off at about 2 million monthly listeners. Then he went on a promotional tour. He started at the college level, went out and paid to go to each one of the cities and paid out of pocket, right? And then did his own tour where he did 4 or 5 dates in regional, right? In Texas, Oklahoma area. And then he went out on tour with Kevin Gates, right? Like, so he worked his way up to be able to get to tour with Kevin Gates over the span of a year and a half. And now he's over 7 million monthly listeners, right? His audience, the people who were streaming his music, now got an opportunity to go and see him in person, right? They got to experience his live show, got to get another taste of him as an artist, and that just builds this a part of the whole story, right? And as he's on the road, he's now creating content, right? And when you think about how you release your music, typically you release your music, you release the song, then you release a music video, you might do some BTS, right? But then you add this other layer of your day in your life while you're on tour, the performance clips, right? Now you're posting on Reels and Shorts and TikTok, right? Now you're giving your fans another way to experience you, and now they're willing to be able to buy the tickets for you when they're going around into their city. The other piece of that supports that is that on all the streaming platforms, there's a back end tool for artists to be able to identify who their fans are. So we was able to make smart decisions. We weren't just going to cities that we didn't know if he had fans in. We was going to cities that he had fans because we knew that the Spotify data supported that. Or the Shazams, his Shazams were growing day over day or week over week to support us going into another city. So it's important to kind of marry what you're doing on the streaming side, what you're doing on social media, use that data to be able to inform where you go on your touring routes, and to be able to reach your fans.
I just want to add one thing, sorry. Another thing with getting on the stage, it'll help you make better songs. So you'll realize what worked, what's reacting on stage. You know, like what part of my song caught the audience. You might realize, okay, I need to bring the hook sooner. I don't need this verse to be 30 bars. I need this verse to be 8 or 12. You know, so you'll become a better songwriter by getting on stage, especially getting on stage in front of crowds that don't know you. So I have a thing where I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, if the audience can sing the chorus by the second chorus, you have a good song. Because if they don't know you, you come on stage, they don't know the chorus the first time, you do your verse, but by that second time the hook comes around, if people are like able to sing it back a little bit, it's like, okay, yep, this is catchy. This song is written well. So I do think getting on stage is important because it'll help you in the studio. You'll realize how to structure your songs better, and it'll make you a better songwriter. That's what I think. I think the stage just translates to making better records.
Absolutely. That's great feedback. Going back to technology for a minute, this is a question for all three of you. You know, for every Facebook and Snapchat, there's a Periscope and Vine, something that has a moment, people get hype about, and then it just kind of moves on. It doesn't work out, or it gets acquired, and you know, just kind of retired. How do you guys think about new technologies and when you want to get involved in new platforms? Like, do you kind of sit back and wait and see where things shake out, or do you jump in right away?
I say lean in, embrace what's going on. Don't be stuck in your ways. There was a time where people were being resistant to TikTok because they felt like, oh man, it's all about dances. But as you can see, if your song's not doing good on TikTok, it's not good anywhere. You know, so you have to embrace the times as they change, and you have to lean into what's going on. You can't be stuck in your ways. You have to be ready to evolve at all times. There was a time where I think 2019, 2020, DaBaby, he used Triller real well. Like, Triller was a big thing, and at that time, you should have been on Triller, but it's not as poppin' now. So you have to just stay conscious of keep your finger on the pulse, stay conscious of what's big, and lean into it. And don't try to resist. Don't be like, nah, I'm not doing that because that's for kids. Nah, like, you're trying to sell records to kids at the end of the day. So lean into what's going on and just evolve. Every time something new comes out, jump on it.
I agree with that. You know, there's technology tools and tech apps and websites that allow for you to be able to solve a lot of your problems as creatives, as artists, as entrepreneurs. Like, have trouble budgeting, there's a budgeting app for that, right? Have trouble making artwork, there's an app for that, or a website that can help you do it, like Canva. You don't have a videographer or a video editor, drop it into CapCut, right? And all these tools are tools that are helping you be able to grow your business. So if you look at technology as like your toolkit and your tool belt, like if you was a construction worker, you'll have to have a tool belt with all these different tools so you can actually do the work, right? Technology is that tool belt. You just plug and play which apps, which websites, which tools you need so that way you can be successful. So, you know, technology has always innovated the music business from creators to now. Technology helped artists be able to create music in their room, not having to go to a big studio, to help artists reach fans around the world so you don't have to just pass out CDs. So you have to embrace it, right? This is what's helping you be able to get to the next generation, right? The audience and the fan bases are getting younger and younger. The attention span is getting shorter and shorter, right? So you have to leverage technology to kind of bridge that gap.
I agree. My only concern on the legal side, which has been my concern, is even beyond how my clients are able to monetize it, because everything may not result in $1 right away, but it can result in eyeballs and new fans that may eventually do this. So I absolutely agree. If it's there, that's fine. I just have to make sure that whatever rights are going to be involved potentially, that my client is protected. So if it's when you own it, you get to pick and choose. If you're with a label, I have to just make sure that it's not giving too much permission to the label to do a thing that my clients may not want to do. And so that's the thing. And so as an attorney, that's the language you have to be mindful. And that's part of the fear when you're looking at creatives when it comes to AI. It is who has, and this is not just on the music side. You see it in film, you see it in television. Jeffrey Wright just did an interview recently where he wanted to say the N-word in his new movie, American Fiction, and they didn't want to do it, so they end up dubbing somebody else's voice to do it. And so there is the creative aspect on how you maximize all the tools in your tool belt. And David and Boogers are absolutely correct. You don't know until you know. Some things are going to do well, some things are not. You can't be afraid of failure, or you can't be afraid if it does not hit massive success. If you do that, you're paralyzing yourself. For me, I just need to make sure whether it's success or failure, that you are protected to the degree or to the extent that we can see, and it does not allow you. So you look at all these performances that people did when COVID was out, and they did these performances, it was great, and it bridged a gap for all of us. However, what I don't want to see happen for my clients, or quite frankly any other creative, is somebody takes those performances, and now it's an AI created version of that they can't control. So I think it was a great idea. It allowed them to still reach their fan base, and even how to do a different type of show in front of a different type of audience. I just have to make sure that it's protected, whatever that looks like. But I think you should absolutely embrace technology. We see big box stores who did not, the Toys R Us's and everybody else when website was a thing, Kodak when they did not see digital cameras and where that took them. You would be a fool not to, but just protect yourself.
Yeah, so lean in and get a good lawyer. Let's open it up to some questions from the audience. Anyone have any questions?
Doing tonight? That's what I'm talking about. So I'm an upcoming artist. My name is JoJo the GOAT. And everybody, putting their time in. So I invested, to come here. I didn't come here to lose. You know what I mean? I'm representing the city of Charlotte as of now. I'm a resident here in Charlotte. My question is, can I give y'all my card?
Yeah, definitely.
He gonna call on you and get out of here. That's awesome. Well. Charlotte's own. Anyone else? Any other questions? Sure.
I don't know, Mike, but could you talk a little bit about lateral ways or things that artists can need to look at outside of music, like merch and doing shows, just other lateral things and tertiary things aside from just the music itself that we should pay attention to?
Yeah, so I would say merchandise is very important because I was having this conversation yesterday, actually. If somebody stumbles across your page and they like you, right, you need to have an action item. You need to have something that they can support you with. So if you could sell them a merch for $50, it would take tens of thousands of streams to get that same $50. I think 1 million streams pays like $4,000. So that means 100,000 streams pays $400. So 10,000, I'm just trying to do math, I'm sorry. 10,000 streams pays $40. You see what I'm saying? So somebody would have to bump you 10,000 times. I don't even know if I've bumped my favorite rapper 10,000 times. Like, you have to bump a song 10,000 times in order to give that artist $40. So it's important for you to have merch because if I come across your page and I like you, even if I become your biggest fan and I listen to you 700 times this year, that's still only gonna put 12, 15 bucks in your pocket at best. But if you have a hoodie, or you have a merch, or you have something I can support, that will give you the same amount of money that I would have probably had to take 2-3 years to finally put into your pocket. You see what I'm saying? So it's important for you to have merch, and you have to be creative with different ways you can monetize what you're doing. So merchandise is one, shows is another, and you have to just come up with different ways to monetize your craft because streaming is cool if you own it, but at the end of the day, like I said, you're gonna have to listen. Let's say you love Drake. You can listen to Drake 1,000 times in a month or a year. That's only gonna put $8 in Drake's pocket. So if Drake had a hoodie though, that's $80. That $80 is equivalent to 200,000 streams. You see what I'm saying? So have merchandise, have different things that people can support you with, because streaming pays, but in my opinion, it doesn't pay that well. But yeah, just have merchandise. Nipsey Hussle had a line. He was like, he said, what did he say? He said, there's way more profit in these clothes, so I give away the music and make double back in shows. Like, the music is pretty much free these days. Half a tenth of a penny per stream it might as well be free. You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. So you have to have other things, merchandise, live experiences, come up with creative ways to monetize what you're doing, because if you're only relying on streaming, you're gonna need a gang of streams to make a living. A gang, like you need 1 million to make $4,000.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like, I think when we think about merch, we think about t-shirts and hoodies and stuff like that. But you can also think about it from a perspective of the things that you like, right? Like if you love drinking tea, right? You can go and white label a tea brand, and because you talk about tea on social media, your fans identify and say that I want to buy your tea brand, right? So if you look at it as an entrepreneur, you can see all different types of ways to create lateral and verticals in your business, right? When you think about your content that you're posting on social media, right? You post that content on YouTube, you start to monetize that content, right? If you make really compelling content, then you start getting brands to want to pay you to product placement in your content, right? You can monetize the followers that follow you on social media, right? So there's all these different ways, and you just have to be creative. There's no kind of guardrails anymore for what you should be doing. You can be an artist, entrepreneur that also has a daycare, that also has a car transport service. You can have all the things in the world that you want. You just have to be entrepreneurial about it. Music should be a catalyst to bring an audience into your world, right? You control attention, then you control the sentiment of that attention that you have, and then you can sell those products to them.
Just quickly, I had a really good friend and client, Chris Hicks, who said to me years ago, music sells everything but itself. And as you said, I was in South Africa last month for the part of the reason they had the Hey Neighbor Festival. It's the first time they had it in South Africa for the reasons we've all said, like what's going on in the continent is huge. But there were artists, not just South African and African artists there. There were artists from everywhere, and Uncle Waffles was there. And we were there the first night, it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they had merch. So we were like, absolutely gonna buy merch. These are great gifts to give, out to anybody because it has the artist lineup. First night, they had sold out of merch. And I thought, well, this is great, but y'all got 2 more nights. I'm assuming somebody's gonna get them some more merch by Saturday. But merch is important, but it's everything else. It's the touring, it's everything else. And to everybody's point up there, figure out what that looks like early so that you can figure out what you're doing now to extend that. Because for better or worse, music sells everything but itself.
I think we got time for 1 or 2 more. How about this gentleman right here?
Hey, Bogus, I was wondering when you put those songs on, like 83, 1 a week, new songs, what kind of media do you put that on? Or did you sing the whole song?
Say it again one more time?
Yeah, when you put your songs on the internet or whatever, did you put the whole song on there each week or part?
Yeah, the whole song.
Okay.
Yeah.
What media did you use?
What media? So I distributed it through TuneCore. TuneCore puts it on all the digital platforms like Spotify, Apple, Tidal, anywhere music is available. TuneCore distributes it to those stores, and then I use my social media to promote it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was what I did. And my mindset was, look, at the time, it's like I don't have the same marketing budget a signed artist, might have, but where I can compete is consistency. So we came up with that mindset in the blog era. The blogs aren't as big as they were in 2014, 15, 16, but our mindset, anybody know 2 Dope Boys, that blog? Yeah. 2 Dope Boys? Okay, so that was a very influential blog that a lot of people would go to. So we realized that, look, we don't necessarily have the same budget a Big Sean or YG or a signed artist has, but where we can beat them is consistency. If I can show up on this blog every single week, somebody's gonna see me at some point. That was the mindset. So we just decided I don't have the marketing, but I can use consistency, and I could use social media, and I could use the technology to just keep being in their face. Eventually, one of these songs will stick, and that's kind of what happened eventually.
Right behind him.
Hi, I go by the name of Lamontre Ham. I'm with Grand Imperial Records. I had a question for you, Bogus. I don't know how to really word it, but being as though you're an artist, entrepreneur, and a label owner, how do you deal with the time management of work-life balance? You get what I'm saying?
To be completely honest, there's not a lot of balancing. I think if you want to be great at what you're doing, you have to fully commit. You know, like I think people who are trying to balance too much you can balance after you become successful. I think you need to be 100% committed to what you're doing and give it your all and it's why it's called sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? Like certain things have to be sacrificed. I've missed a lot of moments because I'm focused on this. There was a time that I literally had an air mattress inside of the studio, and when I was making those 83 songs, I slept in the room that I recorded in for the whole summer. I had an air mattress in that room, and I woke up every day. What I always tell people too is that you have to prime your environment for success. So you have to literally, if you want to work out more, your running shoes can't be hiding under your bed. You know what I'm saying? Your dumbbells, they need to be out, they need to be visible so you can use them. So for me, there was not much balance. I was literally hell-bent on doing this. And that's all I did. I fully committed. It might not be the best advice or the most healthy thing, but it is what I did, and it is what helped me get to this point. There wasn't much balance, to be completely frank.
Last question. Anyone else?
Right here. Thank you.
So my name is James Hairston. I'm a video director for live video production business. I own Creative Legacy Films. And my question more so is like from a live director or touring standpoint. I do, again, live production has ranged up from like 13,000 people sold out. So it's more on a tour basis. Like what have you guys gained from touring? Like in terms of like the numbers, like the live, I guess like the monetization you guys have received. Like what does that real time data look like when you get from video streams and live touring and live production?
Anybody else want to go? Okay, so ask it one more time, please. I just want to be a little bit more clear with the question.
So like when you see like these live, a Live Nation, for example, like what do you get back like in return in terms of like the notoriety, the monetization and things of that nature, the real-time existence, the notoriety of it?
Well, on a monetary level, touring is a huge revenue stream for artists. So a lot of artists don't make any money on majority of signed artists never see a royalty check in their whole career, ever. If you go on YouTube, you can look at YG talking about it. Big Sean did a Drink Champs. A lot of artists never recoup. They never get a royalty check. So for so many artists, touring is the main revenue stream. If they don't do a show, they don't eat. So I would say on a monetary level, touring is huge because it's the only way to get paid for a lot of artists. But then I'll also say you make a connection with your audience. Like there's people who will be like, I never knew who you were, but I saw you live. You know, you get those kind of DMs. Like, I never knew who you were, but I saw you live, and now I'm a fan, da-da-da-da. So it's like you expand your audience by touring, and you definitely stuff your pockets if you have fans.
And to what Yolanda was talking about earlier, it's also an opportunity to sell everything but music. People are coming to your show, you can sell the merch, whatever you got. You can also set up your direct-to-fan email list, touch the people, get their information, so now you're not dependent on any other platform. So huge opportunity in that. But yeah, why don't we give it up for our, sorry, Dave.
No, I was just gonna add, because like you saw this year, you saw Taylor Swift started to sell her tours in theaters. Then you saw Beyonce turn around and do the same thing. So it creates other opportunities, especially in the field that you're in, to be able to create other kinds of content and monetize it. Just depending on what the level of the artist is, you can look for different mediums, right? Like you can look for TikTok or YouTube Shorts. YouTube Shorts is YouTube is prioritizing shorts in the algorithm, so it's an opportunity for you to be able to monetize there as well.
Awesome. Great questions. Let's give it up for our panelists.